Welcome to episode 77 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. On this week's show, we take a look back on all that went down at last week's BMW Berlin Marathon.
And ahead of next week's Bank of America Chicago Marathon, I spoke with Team Great Britain athlete Phily Bowden as she prepares to take on the course for the first time.
And we're joined by Melissa Brotz, who's the Senior Vice President of Global Marketing and External Affairs at Abbott, and she'll be with us to talk about Abbott's 10-year partnership with the Abbott World Marathon Majors and a little bit more.
Before we get into that, our show this week is brought to you by the Wahoo Kicker Run Smart Treadmill. The Kicker Run offers the freedom and form of outdoor running at home. Its dynamic pacing capability means the treadmill matches your pace automatically with no controls needed, offering you a more natural running experience. And its unmatched connectivity means you can sync up with the Wahoo ecosystem and third-party apps, including the simulation of routes from the Wahoo app, Strava, or Zwift. Marathon Talk listeners can get a free Headwinds Smart Fan worth $319 or 229 pounds when purchasing a Kicker Run from wahoofitness.com using code RUNTALK at checkout. Martin, how have you been on these action-packed past 2 weeks?
Well, it's good, isn't it? There's been loads going on in the running world. We were chatting just before we started recording this evening about kind of our runs this week, and you just dealt a classic name-dropping blow, didn't you? It doesn't get any bigger than the run you were. Yeah, I just went for a nice casual run. Come on, what did you do?
Right. So I was at a cross-country race this weekend with my daughter, and I came home last night to a text from Joan Benoit Samuelson, who said, "Surprise, I'm in town," the great Joan Benoit Samuelson. And I said, "You and Scott have to come to dinner." So they had dinner with us last night here at home, and we went for a run together this morning. She still pushes the pace after all these years. So she did give this little, I'm not really fit, I'm going to struggle,
Yeah.
I don't want to get lost in the woods. And then she went ahead and pushed the pace on me in classic Joan style.
Bit of Samuelson sandbag in there.
Yes.
Imagine if you were just out for a run, you're kind of just jogging along yourself, and suddenly, you're into your marathon running a little bit, and you look up and you see you two running towards you in the middle of nowhere. You'd be like, what? What's going on? Brilliant. How fantastic.
It is.
How lovely is it to have a friendship enduring, marathon running and, mentoring and coaching and, iconic status that Joan Benoit Samuelson was. Now you've got this amazing friendship too. Isn't that lovely?
It really is. At 11 years old, I was sitting on the living room floor of my parents' house watching her win gold in the 1984 Olympics. And who would have dreamt that not only would I struggle to follow in her footsteps, but be able to call her a friend this many years later. It's truly a privilege of a lifetime. But you are also running royalty recently.
Less privilege of a lifetime, really. She'll kill me. I went running with my wife today, actually. We went for a run around the lovely forest near where we live. Now, I sort of like running with my wife sometimes, and sometimes less so. And this morning was one of those interesting husband-wife runs when you're close enough to somebody to know that despite a prior agreement that you would run together, they actually don't want to go running with you. They want to go running on their own.
How does when those words aren't said, how does that unfold? Does it look like something? Does it feel like something?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what it looks like. Okay. It looks like absolutely no words whilst we're getting out of the car. We park kind of next to the woods in a little lay-by. No words at all. Then we start running. We sort of stop because we have to pick up some, we take the dog. We have to bag that. So we do that little bit, and then literally that's done. And afterwards, she just clears off. So off she goes. And I'm like, oh, okay. She clearly wanted to run on her own today. So that was fun. Liz cleared off into the woods. But then, Deena, it got interesting because I started to
More
feel a little bit
interesting
better.
than that?
Yeah, I started to feel a little bit better as the run went on. So I closed her down a little bit and then pushed on. So the second half was all about her, and the first half was all about her, and the second half was all about me as I just turned the screw and disappeared into the distance.
You're sleeping on the couch tonight.
We spoke again when we got back to the car. All right?
As if nothing.
Yeah, all right. You?
As if nothing went down. You were just back to normal right when you got back in the car.
Nice run. Yeah, it was all right. And on we went.
That is classic, and I can totally relate to that.
And last weekend, it was the 2025 BMW Berlin Marathon with more than 54,000 athletes taken to the streets of the German capital. It was quite punishing conditions. Pretty warm out there in Berlin, wasn't it?
It was hot, and you could see it take its toll on the athletes, especially when you saw women's winner, Rosemary Wanjiru. She ran 2:21 and just collapsed at the finish line. It was a dramatic finish, a fight for that win. But to see her collapse at the finish line made you realize no matter who you were not immune to the hot conditions. But it was quite an amazing race on both men's and women's side.
Yeah, she collapsed at the finish line. She won by just over 3 seconds. So it was a really tight finish. Ethiopia's Deena Dida was second. She collapsed, and you need to be given an ice bath at the end, kind of cool her body temperature down. But I think the Team Abbott marathon majors did see her a few hours later, and she was in good spirits. Difficult running in hot conditions. Sometimes you can train through the summer for a fall marathon, an autumn marathon, and you could get 10 degrees, or you can get 25 degrees. It didn't stop Sabastion Sawe, though, from Kenya. He won the race in 2:02:16. He was actually on world record pace for the first 10K, 28:26. Now, that's rapid, and, in hot conditions, it might feel sort of okay for the first 10K, but then, definitely gets a bit harder to maintain, particularly because hot conditions can sometimes make harder conditions in the second half of the race. It was his third victory over the distance. He did win in Valencia in 2024. And then, of course, we saw him win earlier this year in London in 2025. So that's 2 majors, 1 in a year.
I'm really excited to continue watching him race when he continues to put out such consistent performances like he does. But when we talk about the heat, it also looks like Chicago is trending to be a warmer race this year. So I think it just has to play into your strategy. You might have to think about your goals and adjust your goals a little bit as far as your time and pacing are concerned. Make sure you're really emphasizing getting in those fluids, and if there are cooler things available on the sidelines, like when I saw in Tokyo at the World Championships, they had ice bags and cold sponges, and every station the athletes were putting the ice on their necks and their wrists and even shoving it underneath their hats to keep the tops of their heads warm or cool. So I think it really just should play into your strategy. Dress appropriately and take in those fluids.
Now, Sawe had 7 pacemakers, so it was clearly, Berlin love a world record, right? The Berlin course, proper rapid, really fast course, notorious for breaking the world records, kind of pre-Chicago. Berlin owned everything, right, for a number of years. And I imagine there's this little bit of to and fro between, Berlin, Chicago, occasionally London, Berlin, Chicago, occasionally. And so we're seeing that the moment that that Chicago is the race to go to. But I reckon with 7 pacemakers and winning by 4 minutes, there may have been some chat, particularly, before the race and going out at that speed. And I bet that the race organisers and Sabastion himself were hoping for just a few degrees cooler than that, and it would have been a bit quicker overall, perhaps.
Absolutely. And that is interesting that those are real-time conversations that have to happen. Like, let's go for that world record. And then at 10K, he's like, you know what? I'm feeling like this is not sustainable. So let's tick it down a notch. So those conversations you have to have with yourself out there. For those of you who still have marathons left this year or might come across a hot marathon one day and that goal of running your personal best just doesn't seem sustainable early on in the race, it's okay to tick that pace down and be a little more realistic with what the day has to offer.
Yeah, I'm excited about seeing him race again. You know, it's certainly going to be good. It wasn't all about him though. I'm going to do some testing now, Deena. There was another notable finisher in Berlin. Sted Sarandos ran an impressive 2:59.13. There you go.
Well, good job,
well done, Sted. Yes, not the name he normally goes by. It was, in fact, One Direction star Harry Styles, who now has completed 2 of the 7 Abbott World Marathon Majors.
And he ran under the name Sted. That's not the name he ran under when he ran the Tokyo Marathon. But how amazing. He ran 3:24 and took nearly 25 minutes off of his time from 6 months prior when he ran Tokyo. Way to go.
Yeah. Rapid. So here you go. Deena, live on Marathon Talk. Name me a single Harry Styles song.
Come
on.
Did you do any Madonna covers? Any Madonna covers? No.
No, it's Sign of the Times, topped the UK singles chart in 2017.
Did you just Google it? Did you just
Of course not. His second album, Fine Line, in 2019, debuted atop the US Billboard 200, second biggest ever first week sales by an English male artist, with its 4th single, Watermelon Sugar. Watermelon Sugar. Yeah, Watermelon Sugar. Yeah, you know that one.
Yeah.
Top the US Billboard Hot 100.
That was
there
a classic.
There you go, that one.
That was a classic.
Watermelon Sugar, Harry Styles, 2:59. What's next?
Okay.
All good. Yeah.
We both have teenage daughters. I should definitely know more songs by Harry Styles.
Well, I tell you what, on that note, wait till we get forthcoming show, hopefully next show, when I am going to be speaking to an absolute pop hitter, right? So, yeah, it might have to be guns out for the next show.
Is it Harry Styles?
I can't tell you.
You're not allowed to tell me.
Well, I can tell you that it's not Sted.
Okay.
But yeah, you have to wait to see. But there is an absolutely banging musical guest coming up.
Can't wait to hear it. Next weekend, the Bank of America Chicago Marathon will be taking place on the shores of Lake Michigan, with some big names appearing in the men's race. John Career is back to try and defend his title, but it won't be easy with the likes of Jacob Kiplimo, Amos Kipruto, and U.S. hopefuls Connor Mance and Galen Rupp. We haven't heard Galen Rupp's name in a while, but I do know that Connor Mance is going after the American record, so it's bound to be a fast race for US men.
Yeah, I was surprised actually seeing Rupp's name on the start sheet, because, you know, we were talking about Galen Rupp like 10 years ago, transitioning from track to marathon running, and then he's sort of gone quiet really. So do you know much about this? Is this a serious return, or is he towing the line?
Yeah, it is a serious return. I have had the privilege of keeping in touch with Galen over the years, and he has been ridden with a lot of injuries. He puts a lot of effort into training and sometimes falls on the other side of that fine line that we train on. And so he did have surgery last year, came back and had some more injury as he was trying to come back from that. But as in the last few months, he seems like he's doing well and really ready for this race.
Exciting, you know, there's still, like, to think there's still, and this sounds odd, a bit of an odd thing to say, but life in the old legs yet, you know? Because as a runner, sometimes, and those people listening will probably know, sometimes you might think your best days are behind you. You know, oh, my best days are behind me. This is done. I can't do this anymore. And you keep trying and times don't get quicker and things go in one direction, and Harry Styles.
One Direction, you put it in there.
What
That's
a link!
amazing.
What a link! Things go in one direction, and you sort of think maybe this is it. Maybe I should hang those shoes up. And with Galen Rupp, I bet he's had a few of those. You know, it was a bit reminiscent for me of Jake Whiteman, watching Jake run the World 1500 meter championships recently and getting that silver medal and seeing, you know, Jake's had rough times in the last few months, last few years, going from world champion over 1500 meters on the track to, you know, a low period, a low spell, and then to come back and show that actually I'm still one of the best in the world. I wonder what Galen Rupp can do. Very exciting. What about the women's?
In the women's division, we're guaranteed a new winner, and someone who will have her eyes on making a name for herself in the Windy City is our guest for today. Welcome to Marathon Talk, Phily Bowden. Phily Bowden is a British long-distance runner who's represented Great Britain internationally on track, cross-country, and the roads. After a strong performance at the 2024 Berlin Marathon at 2:25:47, whoosh, she ranks among the UK's fastest women at that distance. In addition to competing, she works as a running coach and creates content about her training journey, openly sharing both successes and struggles. Phily, welcome to Marathon Talk.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be talking to you today.
Yeah, before we jump into it, I see you're drinking a post-workout smoothie. What is in that recovery smoothie you're drinking?
It's got a bit of beets in here, which is why it's kind of purple. Banana, frozen blueberries, yogurt, bit of ginger, bit of turmeric, and some milk, I think. I just throw in whatever I have.
Yeah, it's like the kitchen sink, right? Everything but the kitchen sink you're throwing into the blender. That's awesome. The ginger keeping your immune system up, because the Bank of America Chicago Marathon is a week out from us recording this. So how are you feeling about race weekend?
Yeah, that's a little scary hearing a week out with it. Being Monday right now, it's like when I look at my training peaks, it rounds it down to a week. And I'm like, okay, calm down, guys. It was 2 weeks yesterday. No, I'm excited. It's really cool to be going into another major. I've heard really exciting things about Chicago. And this training block has been up and down. I feel like it always is. It's pretty much impossible to get through a marathon block without something coming up and trying to derail you. But I'm really proud of the work that we've gotten in. So yeah, I'm excited to do the easy part now.
Yeah, the easy part, just 26.2 miles or 42 kilometers. When you talk about challenges during a training block, what does that resiliency look like? Like, how do you move past some of those hiccups that happened? What's your superpower?
It's difficult. I think, honestly, I credit a lot to the people around me. I couldn't do it without them. And I lean on my partner, who obviously I work with a lot as well. And he's kind of playing lots of different roles at different times: assistant coach, bottle handler, emotional support, my coach and my teammates, and just my friends and family. I think they carry me when I'm kind of like down if something's not going right. But I think the best advice I have is like kind of staying in the present and kind of like zooming in and taking it day by day, but then also not being afraid to zoom out. And when it's positive, say, okay, you don't know where you could be 1 week from now. Like when it feels really, really bad and you've got COVID and you should be doing a long run. Okay, I'll be in a better spot in a week's time, kind of thing. Sometimes that can be unhelpful when you're like, oh my goodness, how fit will I be in 3 weeks or whatever it is? But just kind of trying to contextualize things and knowing as well that we have a tendency to, I don't know, fear the worst and be a bit irrational, just kind of trying to calm it all down. It's, the best thing to do.
Right, because sometimes you need to like be in the moment and really ground yourself in that. But if the moment is making you anxious and not providing the feedback you need to zoom out.
Totally.
So let's zoom way out. And you have shared on social media platforms that your ultimate goal is making the 2028 Olympic team here, just down the street from me in Los Angeles, California. But you need races along the way. So how do you structure those many phases of like that long build up to the road to the Olympic Games and making that team? How do you phase that out?
I think you have to kind of have this North Star, which for me is, making it to that Olympic team and then beyond, and kind of piecing everything together to what are the steps to get there and what do I need to do, and kind of working backwards. I had a great quote on a podcast recently. It was in reference to, I think, the British rowing team some years ago when they were trying to, do something sensational and make improvements, and to everything that was kind of posed to them. Should we do this in training, or like, should we try this? Everything had to be answered by like, will it make the boat go faster? And I think that's a really great way of simplifying it. And whatever your North Star is, and for me, it's like getting to the Olympics. It's like, is that going to help me get to the Olympics? Now, sometimes it might not be clear cut, but if me and my coach think that, okay, taking perhaps a summer season to focus on track races and improve my speed to then help my marathon and also get some more racing experience in there, that can be beneficial. And when you look at the time that we have, I've got some seasons and time to play with. So it's just kind of doing your best with the information you have, and kind of planning as much as you can in a way, but also knowing that like plans change.
Right. And that's a really good way of looking at it. Like, your decisions will either get you closer to your goal or take you away from that. And it's a good way to just have a sounding board on your decision making. Some of our listeners tune in because they need information on how to start. Like, they're just getting those first steps in their planning. So when you're looking at the beginning of a season, what are those first steps of planning what races you're going to do, and how does that unfold in your planning?
I think as a pro, it's a little bit more continuous. Everything kind of flows together versus there being like a start and an end. And interestingly, I have a tendency to kind of get most of the way through a block and get excited about what's next. Like, I haven't done Chicago yet, but I'm already like, okay, how long am I going to rest for? And then what are my races for 2026 going to look like? And now kind of like plotting and scheming and looking at what that could look like. And I think that is a great way to do it. I think having something on the schedule all the time is a great way to kind of keep you dialed in. So long as it's kind of put there with the right intentions. But I think at the start of a block, it does always feel like I'm kind of starting the marathon block. Like, whatever I've done beforehand, if I'm coming in from a track season or a period of base training, or if it's been a bit interrupted, like, it feels like you start and it's week 1 of marathon training and it feels slightly different. So the first sort of 4 weeks definitely feel like an adjustment and a bit of a shock, because the volume goes up and it's a lot of base work. But then after that, I really like that period when you kind of find a really nice rhythm and it feels like marathon training is just normality. And I think that's fitness that gets you there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You hope for that rhythm. I'm still searching for mine these days. But I think that's really great advice to always have something on the calendar, because sometimes the conversations after a big major race are just kind of like getting in that slump, and you're not in your routine anymore, not in that rhythm that the marathon provided for you. So that's great advice to just kind of always have something on the calendar. Yeah. You're based in Flagstaff. Are you training in Flagstaff? Is that right?
So I'm based out here some of the time. I don't have a permanent place out here. We actually stay with Molly Seidel while we're out here. So I'm kind of crashing at her house at the moment. And then back home, I'm just outside of Manchester. So my coach is based out here. So it's always nice to come and do kind of a key training block, at least somewhat out here, because I like getting the altitude hit anyway. And so it makes sense to come to Flag. Like, even last year when my race was in Berlin, obviously I have the time difference to adjust to, and I kind of come home a little bit earlier, but I'd prefer to be in Flagstaff, working in person with him and having my teammates that I train with me, versus having a slightly shorter travel and going to altitude in Europe.
It does seem like this episode is all about name dropping. Olympic medalist Molly Seidel offering you a place to stay while you're altitude training. And so altitude is definitely in the game of preparing for Chicago. What other metrics or data do you look at, like mileage, pace, sleep, heart rate? How do you monitor, and what do you closely monitor while you're training?
Yeah, mileage is a big one for me. And I think in the past I've gotten probably a little too dialed into mileage and placed more importance on it than perhaps other metrics. And I've kind of had to face that during this block where I had some interruptions earlier on in the block and kind of some unexpected kind of hiccups that meant that I really had to cut my mileage down because I just couldn't run for a few days and had to rest. And kind of seeing the comparison week to week compared to other blocks gave me a little bit of anxiety where I've sort of seen, 50% of my mileage because I've only run 50% of those days that week. And that's kind of made me a little nervous. But then getting back onto the consistency and reflecting back on it after, a number of weeks, the average is still in a really good spot. But my coach actually pointed out a really great point is that I have this table where I've got each week of mileage in each block I've ever done. But what that doesn't show is like what that mileage is. And sure, you could do easy running for all of that volume, but you wouldn't be in a very good spot to run a marathon super fast. And I think the intensity points of this block have been a real step forward. So we've been getting in more workouts, kind of being able to stack those workouts a little bit better. So I think that's a little more holistic. I think it's harder to see those data points. You can get kind of a graph from your watch or from different softwares that kind of give you a bit of a fitness algorithm, but it's all a prediction. I would hate to kind of put a bet on me running my watch's prediction for the marathon because I think it's a little unrealistic in the fast direction. But yeah, I think I try as much as I can to not place more weight on like data and metrics than how I'm feeling, especially at altitude. Like the paces are going to be different, your heart rate's going to be different, your recovery rate is different. And so I think it's a real lesson in kind of tuning into how you actually feel, which is hard sometimes to detach from the data, because if you see the splits that you want to see, but you feel pretty bad doing them, then you've got to kind of grapple with that.
Right. And that's such a healthy way and a mature way to look at it. Like if the data and the metrics are giving you good feedback, then rely on that as a boost in your confidence. But if it's not giving you the numbers you want, then you've got to play with it in your head as to why that is and focus on other things that are gonna boost your confidence prior to race weekend. Brilliant. That's so mature.
Yeah. It's taken a while to get here, I'll say.
Well, yeah, and it just continues to teach. This sport continues to teach. So stay with it for decades more, so you can continue to get those grand lessons. Are there any other mental ways you prepare? I mean, you're obviously like twisting things in your head in such a great way, but are there any other mental preparations you take into consideration, like visualization or any psychological tools?
Yeah, I work with a sports psychologist actually, and during the marathon block, I'll try and have a session every 2 to 3 weeks just to keep a check on kind of how things are going and talking through things that have come up maybe in a difficult session or in a really good session, so that then when it comes to a race, you can tap into those things, which is really helpful. And we've used visualization in the past. It feels sometimes a little silly while you're doing it because you really have to kind of tune into as many senses as you can. But when you practice it with a workout that's gone well and you're kind of effectively visualizing something that's already happened, it kind of really teaches your body to do that exercise when you're trying to effectively implant a situation that hasn't happened yet, but you're kind of manifesting it happening. So I do a lot of that, and I also just speak really openly with her about how I'm really feeling, what I'm anxious about, and she's great at just sort of telling me that all of those things are normal, because I think sometimes we beat ourselves up for having doubts, and it's perfectly natural to have those, although we might not, share them openly with everyone. It's then about kind of saying, okay, which part of this is just so normal that we have to just park it and accept it, that it's a hard thing we're trying to do. It's normal to feel scared, but then what are the things that we're worrying about that we can actually have some influence and some control over, so that you can kind of bring back some of that control and sit there and say, I've done everything I can. The nerves now are just the nerves, and that's going to be adrenaline on the start line.
Right. And that is, I mean, I feel like you're so seasoned at this, because the doubt creeps in, and a lot of times you're like, okay, is this serving any purpose whatsoever? Like if you're doubting in the middle of a training block, whether you've run a long run, you have time to do something about it. But if you're doubting it the night before the race, that serves no purpose whatsoever. So how could you shift that attention to something a little more positive? As we're talking, most people running the Chicago Marathon are in their taper phase, or they should be. So how do you structure those final couple of weeks before race day? I guess I'm asking, like, what do you cut versus what do you maintain as race day approaches?
Yeah. So my taper this time around, we've planned it out to be a little bit less aggressive than in the past. I think I've aggressively reduced my volume in the past, which can sometimes leave you feeling a little stale, a little sluggish. So my peak volume during this block was 120 miles, which I hit a couple of times. And so week 1, we mapped out at like, I think 105 to 110, week 2 at like 95 to 100, and then race week 80 to 85, sort of verging on 90 maximum. It's going to look a little different to that, in all honesty, because I've had a little bit of a hiccup where I've had to rest a bit of a knee kind of flare up that's come up. So I've not kind of had something like that in the table before where I've had to rest for a few days. So it's going to look, again, a little bit different, but we're just trying to replicate what that taper was planned out to look like as I kind of juggle the right amount of running and a little bit of cross training to kind of settle things. But in effect, apart from easing down the majority of those first 2 weeks, it's a lot of the easy volume that you're starting to cut. In week 1, it's a bit of the long run. Then it's some easy mileage, and the workouts are maybe coming down in volume a tiny bit, but the intensity points are all still in there. 2 weeks out, or 2 to 3 weeks out, my 2 gym sessions each week start to come down in reps and sets. But again, I'm keeping the intensity. I'm not lifting like PR weights, but I'm keeping in the same kind of weights that I'm lifting. And then in race week, I'll just do like a body weight mobility circuit, and I'll just have the one workout on the Tuesday and then some kind of extended strides probably on the Friday. Race week is like so predictable. It's kind of, once you've done it a few times, you want to be able to just kind of like go to sleep and know what you're doing and not expect to feel amazing or terrible at any point during that week. The only time you need to feel good is on Sunday. So yeah, I kind of know the drill with the taper now. It's something unexpected will come up, whether they're phantom pains or you're spiraling mentally, or you do get something come up that you have to deal with like you would at any point in the marathon block. So it's good to continue learning, and just respond to that as best you can.
Yeah, and it seems like you put in all the physical work and that you have the mental tools that if anything gets thrown at you, any little demons on your shoulder talking mean the week before the race, you've got the tools to strategize and rise above it. So you've got all the tools in your pocket. For race day planning and pacing, you don't have to talk specifically about Chicago unless you want to reinforce that in your mind, but do you enter the race with like a strict goal pace or zones that you want to run in, or do you prefer to be a little more open-minded on race day as to how you're feeling?
It kind of varies, and I think it's definitely changing over time. The first 3 marathons I did was under my previous coach, and I'd say, especially like for your debut and just in general, I think in those marathons, it was a lot more sort of rigid in terms of like, I'm time trialing those races really, and I'm going out there with a pace in mind that we think I can run, and I'm going to roughly try and stay within that. And then going into Berlin last year, I had my own pacemaker. So I effectively didn't have to do any of that work, which was great. But going into that, it was very much, there was quite a wide range of what we thought I could run. And I think it was a lot more mentally that I needed to be on the conservative side of things, having had like not the best marathon a few months prior to that and running a positive split. Just confidence wise, I kind of needed to run within myself for the first half. And then if I maintained that pace, it would have been a 2-minute PR. If I kicked on, a bigger PR, and that's what happened. And so it was nice to have my pacemaker dialed into that plan and communicate with him and be able to pick it up while still having him, there for me. And Chicago will look at it a little different. I don't have my own pacemaker, and whilst it is kind of like a course that people go to run a fast time and time trial, I want to be running my own race, but also dialed into what other people are doing. And especially towards the end, kind of doing my best to race the people around me, because I think that's something that I need to build experience in the marathon doing, racing people. I think a course like Boston or New York or a championship race obviously lends itself to that a lot more, but you can have some some little battles out there on these fast courses as well. So those are the main things in my mind at the moment. And I haven't had the full-on sit-down chat of, okay, what are the pacemaking groups doing and where do we think we're going to go? But we'll be ambitious, I think, because the training is kind of, it warrants that at this stage, I think.
Oh, that's so exciting to hear. If you were to give advice to other runners who are met with unexpected race day variables, whether it's weather or pacing errors or discomfort in the moment, what do you suggest for them?
I think I find it really helpful to ask yourself, is this something that I can control or change? Like the weather, I felt so sorry for people at Berlin last week, but the reality is that's the weather for everyone out there. And whilst it's frustrating that that's not what you ordered, because it could have been 10 degrees cooler and you've done your training block, that's the situation and you can't change anything. But what you can do is, wear light colored clothing and stay hydrated and, hug the shade and take on water on the race. And, what can you do to put yourself in the best possible position in that scenario? And if you find yourself kind of beyond that, really spiraling, it might not work for a lot of people, but it's something that my sports psychologist tried with me and I found it really helpful. Normally for me, like the couple of days before the race is when I'm getting the most anxious and most nervous, and I'll be kind of walking around the city, just, I don't know, going for a coffee or minding my own business, and a very specific race anxiety will enter my mind. We're in protection mode and kind of trying to save ourselves, but it's not helpful. And the advice was to kind of separate yourself from that thought. And the way that you do that is to speak in the third person, but try and make it almost a joke. So I kid you not, I was doing this in Copenhagen before the marathon. I was walking around the city, like voicing in a Russian accent, like, oh, Phily is experiencing anxiety about this. And like you say it out loud, and the way that you separate yourself from that feeling and that thought and speak about it as if it's not yourself, like can be really helpful, I find. And it just sort of, teaches you to take that thought a little less seriously as well.
That's so interesting. I've never heard anyone articulate that, but I do the same thing with my relationship with pain.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk about myself in the third person, about experiencing the pain, so the pain seems so disassociated from me in that moment. But I've never heard anybody talk that way about anxiety or some of those demons that pop up. That is fascinating. I'm glad your therapist approves of my own strategies. So you coach and you create brilliant content. How do both of those roles impact how you view and run your own races?
I think the coaching for me, it's more my races and my experience with my coach and the coaches I've had in the past informs how I coach other athletes. And a lot of the time they're asking me, what's your experience in the 10K or in this? And I think I have experiences of things going well and things not going well lots of times that I can then sort of like build on and speak to when I'm talking to them to help them get prepared for something. The content side of things is definitely very intertwined with my training. I feel very fortunate that it's such a team effort. My husband is the man behind the camera, the person that makes the YouTube videos look as amazing as they do, by being in the editing suite. And on a training camp like this, he's just coming with me for the training session a lot of the time. And that's great because I just get to do my thing. And obviously we'll talk it through and have a bit of a plan for the video. And I might explain what I'm doing beforehand and speak about how it went afterwards. But it just feels like I'm kind of doing something I really love and someone comes and documents it for me. It's not that easy all the time. And when we're doing a video that requires a bit more of a heavier lift and I'm perhaps writing and trying to structure things and talking it through a lot more, it takes more time and effort. But I think they go hand in hand a lot of the time. It's definitely harder when things aren't going well, because a lot of the time I'm talking about my own training, and when things are going great, it's easy to do that. And then when you get a kind of bump in the road, all the time you don't want to talk about it on camera and let the world kind of share their opinion on it. But I've never regretted doing that. It's always been a positive experience. Sometimes you just have to face a little bit of tension to get there, I guess.
Yeah, and your authenticity definitely shines through in all that you post. So thank you for being authentic in all that you do. Phily, thank you so much for joining us. Listeners, give her a follow on Instagram at Phily Bowden. Subscribe to her YouTube channel to join her journey in making the 2028 Olympic team. And Phily, best of luck at the Bank of America Chicago Marathon. I will be there cheering in person.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it.
Really enjoyed that interview with Phily. Good luck to her in Chicago next week.
Yeah, she was great. And our next guest has a very important role to play in Chicago, too, as Abbott, the title sponsor of the Abbott World Marathon Majors, are based in the Windy City. They consider it their home race, and this year marks 10 years of the Abbott and World Marathon Majors partnership. So we had the pleasure of catching up with Melissa Brotz, who's the Senior Vice President of Global Marketing and External Affairs at Abbott, to hear more about their partnership, hear about Team Abbott, and much more. Melissa, welcome to Marathon Talk.
Thanks, Deena. So great to be here with you today.
Thank you. I guess we're going to start at the beginning. Like, Abbott is synonymous with the 7 greatest global marathons. And what inspired the company to partner with the World Marathon Majors, and what does this partnership mean?
Yeah, well, we've been the title sponsor for 10 years, going on 11 years now. And at Abbott, we are a global healthcare leader. Most people know we're a healthcare company. And we have a really unique view of healthcare from a variety of different places, whether that's nutrition, to testing, to cardiac health, to brain health. And as we thought about our purpose, which is helping people live healthier, fuller lives so they can achieve what they want to in their lives, we just thought the marathons were such a unique and special opportunity, because what a better way there is really no better way to think about what an individual can achieve, whether it's the greatest marathoner ever to live, all the way to the person just starting out and picking up that couch to 5K book. So it really has been a terrific partnership through the years, and we're just thrilled to continue to be here.
Yeah, you've really allowed this umbrella of support and community within the marathon world for people to be able to thrive and live healthier lives. Is there something you see when you're watching, when you're on the sidelines cheering? Is there something that resonates with you that makes you really proud of being a part of such a big movement?
Well, first of all, I would say when a member of my team, or really an Abbott employee, is out there running and I'm standing there in one of our cheer zones, there's nothing like it to be able to cheer them on in their own personal journey. So I love that. I will say, a few years ago in Chicago, I saw someone not far from the finish line just collapse. And I saw a couple of other people pick that person up and work to get them over the finish line, compromising their own personal time. And when I saw that, I just thought, that is the best of humanity. You're out there trying to achieve your best, but you're part of this bigger community and helping those people achieve their dreams. And for me, that was a really key moment.
Yeah, those are tear-jerking moments when you're able to witness them. And in Chicago, I've seen more than 200 Abbott employees actually running the race itself, plus volunteering to be at the cheer zones to get runners through. But Abbott plays a really big role behind the scenes of these marathons. So how do you see that it's helped shape the global marathon experience for runners and fans? You have presence at the expo, but how do you see making a big difference?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to commend all of the races for their great care that they give all the runners. those medical tents behind the scenes are just, top notch with the best technologies to help the runners if they end up needing some healthcare on site. And we're really proud to be able to have our iStat handheld testing devices in a number of those races. And it helps determine, electrolytes, cardiac markers, lactate, etc. So it helps the medical staff on site be able to give quick, rapid answers to what a runner might need. So that's one way we're behind the scenes in a healthcare way. As I mentioned before, we have cheer zones at a number of the races where a few hundred Abbott employees come out to cheer the runners. We sponsor a couple of the expos and often have our scientists and doctors, et cetera, participate in those races, in those discussions as well to help with runner health and readiness. So we try to provide healthcare education as well as information for those interested in it.
Right. It's the medical teams can breathe a sigh of relief that you have checked that box, that they're doing a good job. Also, the Abbott Health and Fitness Expo coming up at the Chicago Marathon, the next stop along the Abbott World Marathon Major Series, as well as the 5K the day before, the Abbott 5K there in Chicago. Do you think that when you look at the key things that you've addressed here from the expo to the medical tent, does anything else really capture what this partnership is about?
Well, I think, the 6-star medal is another area that we're really proud to have worked with the races on. Mark Milde, who is the Berlin race director, I think it was originally his idea. And before the medal, everyone got a certificate. And so we partnered with him and the rest of the races to bring that medal forward. And I have to say, I'm a little surprised at what a hot commodity it is. I meet people all the time who, when they realize what I do, say I am trying for my 6-star medal. So it's really great that that has turned into something so coveted. And I think has also helped grow the sport, at least in the majors.
Absolutely. I was actually surprised. I got my 6-star medal in Berlin, and I was so surprised at how emotional the moment was, because each of the races kind of weave their way into the fabric of your lives. They have deeper meaning than just crossing that finish line. Maybe something significant in your life happened during the buildup or during the race itself, and that medal kind of is an emblem of representation of that little piece in time. But to get that 6-star, you realize, when I started this journey, I'm a completely evolved person since starting it. So it's really special in seeing the big term growth. It's like meeting a cousin you haven't seen in 10 years and just seeing that, falling in love with that greater version of them. So it really was super special.
I have had the opportunity to put some 6-star medals on a number of folks, and just seeing, first of all, just finishing a marathon in general is a huge accomplishment, but being able to do that at the 6 most important races in the world, and people are just, breathless, literally, but also figuratively, in terms of that achievement. And it's humbling. It's humbling to be able to do that. And by the way, congratulations! I heard you just ran Sydney, so you have a 7th AWMM star under your belt. Congrats.
Right. And I think I'm one of the many people that are like chomping at the bit to be going for a 9-star medal. Like, think about how big and beautiful that's going to be. So I'm excited for the other races, Cape Town and Shanghai, to check all the boxes so we can continue this journey together.
It should be really cool.
Yeah. So Team Abbott, can you talk a little bit about that and what inspired its creation?
Sure. Team Abbott is a new activation that we put together, which invites runners who have had various health challenges to join a team of people who have had similar challenges and share their stories. And I think one of the biggest inspirations for us is to see people who may have had a health issue at some point, but they said, you know what, I'm not going to let this stop me from achieving what I want to achieve in life. In this case, running marathons and finishing marathons. And so we're providing a community of like-minded people. We're going to share their stories. They're going to have some really cool access to not only get into races, which, as you know, are sometimes very difficult to get in, but also participate in some health and wellness and other types of education and have a really cool race experience. There'll be somewhere between 10 and 30 Team Abbott people at every race. And it's just really... It's really inspiring. For anyone who's interested, you can go to abbott.com/marathons. There's a lot of great information on there about Team Abbott, but just in general, marathons and getting to your best.
It's so inspiring, just creating that community. Is there a story about a runner from Team Abbott that stands out and kind of embodies what the program stands for?
Yeah, I have to say that there is a gentleman who works here at Abbott. His name is Mike Sheehy. And he's not only on Team Abbott, but, ran track, ran over 100 marathons. Running has been just fundamental to who he is. And he realized that he was having some issues kind of keeping at his pace. So he went to the doctor and found out he needed a pacemaker. And he had an Abbott pacemaker implanted and was back running the Boston Marathon in 4 months. And I think for me, first of all, he's a great guy. He's not only running for himself, he's always running for charities. He's always cheering on other, not only Abbott employees, but other runners that he comes into contact with. So he's just that embodiment of a great human. But for me, he just inspires me because he has overcome these health-related challenges and still is able to get out there and get it done. Just really admirable.
Yeah, and on a Team Abbott platform, someone seeing that can believe in their own ability to overcome some pretty scary diagnoses. So that is amazing. Mike Sheehy, what an inspiration. You talk about Team Abbott and that it is inspiring healthy lifestyles through running, but how do you measure success with a mission like that?
I think, maybe in a few ways, we look at the growth of the races and the growth of the sport. I mean, one thing that is so motivational for the folks at Abbott, and I know is true of the race directors as well, is just the growth in the sport. And you can measure it by people signing up and participating. This year in Chicago, for example, I think we're going to have more than 12,000 people running the 5K the day before. And yeah, you are going to have to meet a lot of people. This year alone, I think we'll have more than 23,000 runners will have earned a 6-star medal, right? So that growth is important. But we're seeing it even outside of the majors. Run clubs are becoming increasingly popular. I have a 24-year-old son who doesn't run, but joined a run club in Chicago last summer with his friends. And it's a great social activity that's also really healthy. And that's something that is really terrific to see.
Right. And so if you did look at that bigger picture in measuring success, that Abbott is a healthcare company, but how do the marathons fit into that broader vision of health and wellness? Is it growing within the company? Is that perspective growing?
Yeah, we have, you mentioned that I have responsibility for sustainability, and we have a sustainability goal for 2030 to reach 3 billion people around the world. And, that's about more than a third of the people on the planet. And today we reach 2 billion, more than 2 billion people. And I think, one of the amazing things about marathons is that anyone can run a marathon. There are no barriers, right? They reach people in all places, at all socioeconomic status, etc., from runners to spectators, right? And most of the people, if you want to run a marathon, you do need to train, and you need to be in tune with your health and wellness, your fueling, your hydration, your energy. And I think that many of our employees have run marathons, for example, because they've been in the cheer zone cheering on the runners. So each year that goes by, we see this increase in not only interest in the marathons, but interest in kind of regaining your health and or staying healthy. And I think that's one of the terrific things about the marathons also is it, sometimes we talk about health when something's already happened to you, but this is such a great way to maintain your health as well.
Right. That is a great message. And when you talk about the growth of the sport and record numbers of participation, it's also important to see new numbers, right? Someone running their first marathon, stepping into the sport for whatever reasons, to regain their health, to defy a diagnosis, because their best friend is doing it, a myriad of reasons. But a lot of people just find running intimidating. I've met so many people who might run on the weekends, but they're scared to call themselves runners. So running can be intimidated. How does Abbott encourage everyday people to take those first steps?
Well, a few things, right? One is, I think the 5Ks are, we sponsor the 5Ks the day before the race in both Chicago and New York. And I think those 5Ks, whether you're walking it, running it, maybe jogging with your baby in the stroller, we see it all in those 5Ks. And I think just getting people involved that way. We have supported Girls on the Run in a number of different cities, really encouraging that grassroots support to get young girls out running. And I think that, people, like I said, at least for our employees, just even going and participating, whether it's volunteering or cheering on, etc. We've had more than 3,000 Abbott employees run one of the marathons. We've had 42 6-star finishers. And so sometimes we think about it as, maybe starting at home, but really getting out there. I would say another thing that we do with AWMM is partner on a lot of webinars, information, etc., to help people learn about how can I get started, and maybe I don't have to do a marathon on day one, but just get going.
Right. Those 5Ks act as like a gateway to the marathon. But also, I was just in Sydney and brought my husband and 14-year-old daughter with me, and they ran the 5K. So it's a great way to make traveling a family affair so that the family can be involved also. So I think from economical impact to the cities, that they appreciate you guys sponsoring the 5Ks, putting on the 5Ks, but also it's a great way to get your family moving and being a part of these great events that are now taking over every continent in the near future. I guess from a position of global marketing, one of your roles, how do you create that authentic engagement? Being a healthcare company and trying to authentically engage and create a healthier space for runners. So running community is diverse. So from that global marketing perspective, how do you create that authentic engagement with such a passionate and diverse running community?
Yeah, I think that marathon is probably the only sport in the world where the everyday athlete is participating at the same time on the same course as the most elite athlete and elite group of athletes in the world. And so, we want to engage across that entire spectrum. And so, I think we hope that we're bringing some of our own health expertise to the discussion around fueling, hydration. Eliud Kipchoge, for instance, wears our Lingo biosensor to monitor his glucose to help with his fueling, as well as the NN running team that we sponsor. So there's, a little bit of the product side, but for the most part, we're just partnering and sharing our expertise in as many different ways as we can, whether it's the cheer zone to the medical tent, etc. So we love that we have that opportunity to engage with runners, and honestly, so do our employees. Just those one-on-one moments, seeing people achieve the greatest thing that you can really achieve physically is pretty amazing.
Right. And you talked about Eliud wearing the Lingo so we could get his fueling down, know when, the frequency with which he drinks his fluids and gets his carbohydrates in, but also seeing so many diabetic runners wearing the Lingo out on race courses to know that type of diagnosis doesn't have to be so life-altering when you've got some really great technology right at your fingertips. Literally, like all your graphics on your phone in real time. It's pretty extraordinary to be able to see that. And if you see it in someone, then you can become it yourself. So it makes it really important for everyone to feel like they've seen themselves in the runners out there. It's what makes the marathon so beautiful.
Absolutely. And I think, I think health is that idea of health being at the core that we have in common with everyone in that situation is pretty fabulous.
Yes, indeed. We have Chicago and New York marathons coming up, and athletes are always excited to engage in the 5K and also see new activations. Is there anything more they can expect to look forward to, innovations or campaigns that are coming from Abbott related to the marathon?
Well, Team Abbott is in full force. So you'll get to see the Team Abbott runners who are going to be in Chicago. We're the title sponsor of the Chicago, the Abbott Health and Fitness Expo in Chicago. And so we'll share some of information about our newest technologies. You mentioned the 5K. We'll be cheering on runners from our cheer zone. And in New York, Eliud is going to be running New York and wearing our Lingo sensor. So hopefully that will help him finish strong with a great fueling strategy. And so I think, Team Abbott is really what's new this year. And we're excited to have them share their stories with other runners.
So exciting. They did a great job of that in Sydney. Eliud there engaging the crowd at the Friday night kickoff party. He did a great job getting everybody hyped up and excited. And so with being in Sydney, that being the first year that they hosted a major. Does the growth of the brand tie into the overall growth of Abbott to build further global community engagement with running in regions that are emerging? Because we see running growing around the globe. And does that excite you?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's we were just thrilled for Sydney to come on board. And, that was the first new race since 2012. So absolutely a big deal. And I was not there, but just heard it was an amazing race. We have employees as a global company. We have employees everywhere. And so anytime they have the opportunity to be involved, they get really excited. And one of the things we did in Sydney was we partnered with the Australian Red Cross, which is a customer of ours, to do a blood drive in advance of the marathon. And then those folks who donated blood had the opportunity to come and be in the Abbott cheer zone in Sydney with our Team Abbott folks. And so that was really terrific to see people donating blood for other people in the community, and then having the opportunity to be part of something so special that was brand new to Sydney in their first AWMM foray.
Oh, that's beautiful. Melissa Brotz, thank you so much for taking the time for this interview and for really walking the walk or running the run in what it means to really be health and wellness oriented. Thank you. I feel so grateful that Abbott chose the sport of running to get involved in to prove why they are leaders in the healthcare industry. Thanks for your time.
And thank you, Deena. Really appreciate it. Nice to talk.
Great conversation with Melissa. It's really authentic, isn't it, when you speak to someone from an organization and they're able to connect with the emotions of an event, because it helps you see beyond, and it helps you understand that the connection is there. When an experience resonates with somebody so personally.
Yeah, you can tell it's not just a transactional partnership. Abbott as a whole really does value this connection to making the world a healthier place through running. So it was really great listening to her and the emotion with which she speaks about how meaningful this partnership is to the brand. Just awesome.
Yeah, and as somebody who works in physical and emotional development, like the connection between well-being and well-being through the physical and well-being through the emotional is really important. So, it's your word transactional is really relevant because it needs to be more. And so when you feel like it is, and you have an emotional and a physical connection, then actually it is better for your well-being. It really is. Anyway, look, I could waffle on about that connection for ages. I'm not going to. We'll wrap it up there. Okay, that's about it for this show, this episode of Marathon Talk. Deena, you're off to Chicago this week.
Yes, whenever you ask me that, I have to glance at my calendar. Like, what am I doing in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah,
cross-country races. My daughter's running cross-country, so I'm the crazy mom fan running around the course. Mm-hmm. But between that and the pleasure of draping medals around people's necks at the Chicago Marathon finish line is one of my greatest joys of the year. So that's what I'll be doing. What are you up to?
I have a couple of football matches to go to. We're sort of in that season, aren't we, where our running is surrounded by our kids' activities as well. So yeah, I've got a couple of football matches, a training, a rowing event, like all those things get to do as well. So yeah, I'm not going to Chicago though. I've got a bit of what did I say? Like we were talking the other day, like you and David, who helps put the show together, you were sort of waxing about how much fun you're going to have in Chicago, and I sort of put hashtag Chai FOMO, sort of missing out. Wish I was there with you, but I'm sure you'll have a lovely time.
Well, whether Martin and I are at the races, we are always there in spirit. We have your backs, and we hope that all of you enjoy the run wherever it takes you.